But speaking of R rating, more mature ratings, we got a trailer for Echo, which we didn't get a chance to talk about last week. It debuted last Friday, really, kind of at the end of the business day. It was a little bit of a weird release, but Echo has been this long gestating project as well. A lot's been talked about it. A lot's been discussed, especially in the way of doubt, I think, that's been casted upon it just due to the fact of the release strategy, the fact that it's going to be available with all episodes premiering at the same time. Marvel has never done that before. There's been a lot of chatter and conversation about the production of the show, reshoots, things that have not necessarily come to fruition, maybe in the best way. I think there's just been a lot out there that's cast a lot of doubt in terms of whether or not this is going to be a good project. Well, then the trailer comes out, and it's a shocking trailer, unlike anything else that we've seen out of Marvel. It's super dark, it's super gritty. It feels very much like, I think, what we hope to see out of a Daredevil show or Deadpool or a Blade, like something that's just tonally very different from all other Marvel and MCU projects. How did you feel about this trailer? How do you feel about this being the first TVMA show that we're going to get? And also just kind of the release strategy as well. They're dropping this on Disney Plus and Hulu at the same time. Again, another new move that they never utilized before. So overall, what's your overall sort of outlook on Echo now that we've actually got some footage for it?
It's Echo is a very interesting experiment because there is a a, a, a big I think number of us who are still like after watching Hawkeye is like, why do we and should we really care about this character, right? What is going to buy us into Echo? And there was nothing, not too much really into again Hawkeye that was like, oh, Echo, oh, I can't wait till she gets her own series. There wasn't a lot of that. And so, it hearing about the show, a lot of us, I think, just kind of have been shrugging off like, oh, Echo's coming out, I guess. You know what I'm saying? But I think this trailer is doing something interesting to at least perk up the ears, of at least a lot of people. They're like, oh, maybe we should, maybe, be interested in Echo at least a little bit. And one of those things, absolutely and for sure, is this TVMA rating. Not only that, but the trailer, when you watch it, there's some stuff in it. It almost feels red bandy. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh man, I didn't expect to see some of the blood and death that is happening in this trailer, and it definitely catches your eye. And so, man, Echo again, it feels like an experiment, but I think this trailer at least does a good job of you know maybe getting the attention, at least of me. It got my attention a little bit more than it did of being like, maybe this is something I do want to watch. In this, we've been talking about Marvel stepping in the right direction, or when they're going to step in the direction for TVMA content. We know Deadpool's coming. We know Daredevil's coming. We just talked about Blade a second ago. But you're telling me Echo was low key about to be first out of all of those projects? And I think this is their real test to for us to buy into the idea of what TVMA Marvel could look like. Now, what I am afraid of is that they put all their eggs in a basket. And if this doesn't go well, I'm afraid for everything else. Like, oh, is this really like, I don't want to question in the middle of the show, is this TVMA? I don't want to question, is this the Wilson Fisk that existed in the Netflix series? I don't want to question a lot of these tonal things. I just want it to be and kind of feel natural to whatever is happening in the show. I don't want anything to feel forced. And so, man, I where I land with Echo right now, I feel better about it than I did before, but I'm still not completely sold. It really is like the TV show has to come out kind of thing, and it has to perform. I feel like they put almost a little bit more weight on the shoulders, kind of surrounding Echo with these things, putting Wilson Fisk in the trailer, putting Deadpool, or not Deadpool, but Daredevil in the trailer, making it TVA. I feel like it adds more weight to what Echo is and supposed to be. So again, it's hard to look at Echo and be like, I'm excited for that, but also it also has the potential to potentially subvert some expectations. So I think there's some scary stuff there, but also potentially some good stuff with Echo as well.
It's a really, really good trailer too. Like, I gotta give them
It
credit
is
for
a fire
crafting a
trailer.
really, really good trailer, and that's not an easy thing to do, especially, and I don't know this, but if it's not a good show, to craft a good trailer out of something that isn't great is a challenge, and so we'll have to see again how the show is and how it performs. But the trailer does make you lean in and kind of perk up, and I think captures your interest if you like the more grounded and gritty and mature elements of what comic book storytelling could represent on the big or the small screen. And so what we saw here was a side of the MCU that's just not been present. And I think that that's a welcome change of pace. And they did enough here to make me at least reinvest my interest into the show, because prior to this, I
Hmm.
mean, by all accounts, I had pretty much zero interest. And I think a lot of what's been a challenge for Marvel as it relates to its audience lately is giving projects to characters that people don't really care about. And I don't know how many people want to see Echo on screen. And of course there's bigger implications and importance, like its representation for Native American, indigenous people, for the
Hmm.
deaf population. Like all of that stuff is important, and I think it's worth noting. But as a character, will that draw enough people in to want to watch it? And I think that this trailer did a good job of adding on so much other stuff to make you want to like at least tap in and give it a chance to see what it's about, because of the Wilson Fisk presence and Daredevil and the story and the dark tone of it all. And
Hmm.
the fact that they continuously, sort of tease out that Echo is really a villain, not a hero. And they're leaning
Hmm.
into the fact that she is a villain in this show. Like they're not going to really stray away from that. And she's going to do some questionable things. Like, so if we're looking at a character Breaking Bad over the course of these 5 episodes, like, okay, that's something that I think is worth sort of checking out and seeing how that plays out. But speaking of experimentation, though, they also discuss Marvel, how that with Echo they're launching a new banner for projects called Marvel Spotlight. This is something that's going to be completely new for them, and it's essentially a way to differentiate certain types of media and projects that they're developing, across from sort of the more mainline MCU stuff. Brad Winderbaum, who's the head of streaming over at Marvel, he had a quote about this new plan to launch Marvel Spotlight. He said, "Quote: Marvel Spotlight gives us a platform to bring more grounded, character-driven stories to the screen, and in the case of Echo, focusing on street level stakes over larger MCU continuity." Just like comics, fans didn't need to read Avengers or Fantastic Four to enjoy a Ghost Rider Spotlight comic. Our audience
Hmm.
doesn't need to have seen other Marvel series to understand what's happening in Maya's story. End quote. So essentially implying that this is something that does not require homework. You don't have to watch previous MCU shows. Even though she appeared in Hawkeye, that's not necessarily going to be required to really understand the story here. And this appears to be something that they're going to really lean forward with in terms of other stories. Maybe Daredevil is that, maybe other
Hmm.
projects will be that. How do you feel about this being a new avenue for them, launching a new banner entirely that's going to, sort of create this other corner of the MCU that doesn't necessarily require as much previous viewing as maybe some of those like mainline MCU projects have?
Yeah, we're really far into the MCU right now. Like really, really far. In fact, we just got done, watching the Marvels last night. And one of the things about that movie, I was watching it like, damn, there's a lot in here. Like if you really think about it, there's a lot of setup that happens in order to get to the Marvels, if that makes sense. Like where all these characters are in their just in the world, there's a lot going on. And so I kind of like the idea of Marvel Spotlight, because I can imagine somebody trying to get into Marvel content but not have to worry about all the nitty-gritty that the MCU has going on. And part of me likes the idea to be like, you don't have to know nothing at all. You kind of just jump into this project. So I like that idea of a Marvel Spotlight, right? We talked about how kind of cool is separated for what's the Werewolf by Night? You know what I mean? Even Moon Knight felt like it could have been Marvel Spotlight, right? You don't really have to know anything in Moon Knight in order to really watch that show. And so part of me really likes this idea of Marvel Spotlight, not only because of all of that, but I think even just hearing that, even hearing you don't have to know anything else about the greater implications of the MCU, to me, that also ignites ideas. To me, that says, I can do this thing. I can create something in Marvel Spotlight that may be separate from everything else. Again, that does feel grounded. That does feel disconnected. That may just feel, like just something else entirely, and maybe provide some creativity to a lot of those in this show in Echo, a lot of those street things, right? A lot of the Defenders kind of content, like you said, Daredevil. Maybe we do get, I don't know, some more, street level shows under Spotlight that people can enjoy. So I like the idea. I just hope they, stick with it, and maybe, yeah, I just hope they stick with it, man, and actually make it an experiment, more than anything.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea on paper. I'm just, it's all going to just come down to how they actually utilize it across their
Exactly.
stories. Because
Hmm.
on one hand, I'm thinking, well, what took so long? Because we could have utilized this for other things that have come out, Moon Knight in particular. fits perfectly under Marvel Spotlight. Like you don't
Mhm.
need to watch anything else to sort of dive in and enjoy Moon Knight, or not enjoy it, however you feel about it. But I do wonder if it actually has business implications in terms of what creatives could bring to the table. You kind of just
Right.
talked about that. Like, will this allow a chance and an opportunity for filmmakers to step in and say, hey, I have a really unique take on this character. Can it be underneath this Marvel Spotlight banner? And can we do it completely separate from everything else? Or is it just like this cute name to help, create sort of a new buzzy trend and an opening fanfare that's going to be somewhat different, but not really mean anything?
Mhm.
Because I think that's still yet to be seen. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt though, and say like, well, okay, this is a nice way to say like, well, if you want to just enjoy a certain type of MCU story, it's probably going to exist under this particular corner, which a lot of it is leaning towards the Daredevil, the Echo, the Punisher. All those characters
Mhm.
feel like they're gonna fall underneath that, and so it could be a good thing. It could be a really useful thing as well in terms of how they actually like craft and greenlight certain stories and projects, and potentially work with filmmakers who might want to do something totally different out of what we see from sacred timeline MCU stuff that feels a little bit more coherent to the larger continuity. So we'll see. We'll see how it all manifests and how it turns out.